I'm Joan Jonas, and I'm sitting in my loft in New York City for this interview. Very soon after moving back here, I did the graduate program at Columbia. And at that time, art schools were very different than they are now. They didn't have a direct contact so much with the contemporary art world. So after I graduated from the MFA program at Columbia, where I was doing sculpture, I got a job on 57th Street at the Green Gallery run by Richard Bellamy. Richard Bellamy was very, very important at that time. He showed many of the most interesting artists. He discovered them. So that was when I really came in contact with what was going on downtown. It was a relatively small art world, but everybody more or less knew each other. And so there was a big interaction between artists from different disciplines: music, dance, theater, painting, sculpture. My audience was composed of all those different people from all those different disciplines, as what were other people's audiences. My very first piece was a piece I did with mirrors, with the audience, with the performers holding mirrors, large 5-foot by 18-inch mirrors, and moving very slowly, the performers holding the mirrors. And they reflected the audience and the room around them, and it made a kind of cubist space. It was very visual work. My work was, from the beginning, really based on the idea of an image and the visual, and how the image can be altered by various mediums, such as distance, the mirror, and then later video, or at the same time. But I think the piece that was perhaps a little more significant was a piece called Organic Honey's Visual Telepathy, because that was when I started working with video in performance. And the way I worked with video was that there would be a live camera in the performance that would record, or the image would pass through that camera in the closed circuit system and be seen in a projection or on a monitor, so that a detail of the performance would be seen by the audience simultaneously with the live action. And from then, I just went on to develop different relationships between video and performance, and also to make autonomous video works. So my video works at the time were works in themselves. They weren't documents of the performance, because one has to translate and a new version has to be made. I think throughout the years, I worked more and more with the idea of layering, because video gave me that opportunity in my performances to create layers. The video projection, the live performance in front of it. And so really in Venice, I'm specifically working with the idea of the screen, and how one makes space on this flat surface. That was also one of my early concerns. Because of looking at painting and looking at films, how do you make an illusion in this framed surface, or on this framed surface? My present work involves creating backdrops, which I've been doing for a number of years in my performances. I make backdrops which are parallel narratives to the performance, so it's not so much of a live camera idea, although I do use the closed circuit quite often, but it's also about making these backdrops, which are large projections. And so in the present piece, we worked in a studio and set up a screen situation in which there are double projections, and I'm able to make different kind of layers. I began this work in 2008 or 2007 in Como, Italy, at the Roddy Foundation, when I had a projection screen with 2 projectors, one on each side, and playing with shadows against the projected video image, and so on, or 2 video images at the same time, playing with blocking one and letting the other one show through. And so this work involves that setup. So and I'm glad to go back to that, because I find it very interesting to develop techniques or ideas that are kind of touched upon. This piece, so it has several layers. It has to do with the environment, but in a very indirect way. It comes out of my last piece, Reanimation, based on a novel by Haldor Laxness, the Icelandic writer, called Under the Glacier, which developed into a piece really about the present situation, partly, because glaciers are melting, and Haldor Laxness writes about nature in a very beautiful way. And so I was inspired by a few of the phrases and little descriptions that I brought into this piece from Laxness. But the main text in this piece is from the source in Cape Breton, where I go in the summer, of ghost stories told by people who live in Cape Breton, so they're from an oral tradition. So that's the, so there's the layering of the video, and then live performers in the studio space performing in front of these video backdrops, which were mostly shot in Nova Scotia, and then the parallel layer of the ghost stories. I think that often one develops one's basic ideas very early, and then continuously one, although one's work may change in appearance radically, those ideas continue to inform the work.